Please stand for the gospel. The Holy Gospel according to Matthew, beginning at the 22nd chapter.
Glory to you, Lord.
Then the Pharisees went and plotted to entrap him in what he said. So they sent their disciples to him, along with the Herodians, saying, "Teacher, we know that you are sincere and teach the way of God in accordance with truth, and show difference to no one. For you do not regard people with partiality. Tell us then, what do you think? Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not?" But Jesus, aware of their malice, said, "Why are you putting me to the test, you hypocrites? Show me the coin you used for the tax." And they brought him a denarius. Then he said to them, "Whose head is this, and whose title?" They answered, "The emperor's." Then he said to them, "Give therefore to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's." When they heard this, they were amazed, and they left him and went away. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Please be seated. When I was in elementary school, one of my favorite language arts units was on mythology and folklore. I used to love hearing myths about how things were created, and hearing about these larger-than-life characters in books with beautiful illustrations that would capture the imagination. One of my favorite series was about Anansi, the spider, a character from the Ashanti people located in modern-day Ghana. Anansi was a trickster, and his hijinks would often cause trouble before he was caught in the same webs that he weaved. Anansi was a smooth talker, and he would use the power of speech to lure others into achieving his goals. And it was often through another's clever wit that Anansi would be found out and the moral of the story taught. In our gospel reading this morning, Jesus finds himself in a battle of wits with the Pharisees and the Herodians. After flattering him, they pose a question. Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not? Jesus knows that in spite of this flattery, this question does not come from a place of innocent curiosity. His questioner's intentions are far more dangerous. Regardless of whether he says yes or no, the Pharisees didn't support paying taxes to the emperor, and the Herodians did. So Jesus gives both an object lesson. He asks for a denarius, a coin used to pay the tax in question. And he asks whose image is on the coin and what is his title. They answer that it was the emperor. And Jesus responds, "Give therefore to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's." Hearing Jesus' response, they were amazed, likely confused with how to proceed from there, and so they left. Jesus' answer is a complex one about the relationship between faith and politics. He does not say that these two spheres exist in isolation from one another. Politics, according to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, is a total complex of relationships between people living in society. Just as the coin bore the image of the emperor, we are created by God and bear God's own image, which means that we owe God everything. Everything belongs to God, the emperor's realm included. How do we give to God the things that belong to God? One example is to give of our time, our talents, and our treasures to the church and organizations that support our ministry goals. But if everything belongs to God, then our spiritual and political lives must converge. That's not to say that one political party more closely aligns with God. Jesus' ministry works intimately and consistently in the relationships of God's people, where he lifted up the lowly and the oppressed. Jesus' ministry was political, but it wasn't partisan. Jesus very clearly does not take sides in the dispute between the Pharisees and the Herodians, but challenges them both in their thinking. So how can we align our faith and our politics? In a video released on Thursday by Bishop Egensteiner, he gives one example: voting. Mail-in voting is already in progress, and in-person early voting begins this coming Saturday. He reminds us that we aren't Christians some days and U.S. citizens others, but we exist as both all the time simultaneously. As reflections of a loving, forgiving, and gracious God, we connect our faith and political lives when the values of our faith that our faith instills inform the choices that we make. By researching candidates and voting for the ones that we find most aligned with what Jesus teaches us, we allow these two realms to coexist. And as a result, the endless sacrificial love of God is able to project into the world. The coin very clearly belongs to the emperor. The emperor's face is engraved upon it. But our first loyalty is always to God, in whose image we are made. Empires rise and empires fall. We've seen it throughout history. But in God's kingdom, we know that God will outlive them all. To quote theologian Debbie Thomas, empires are limited and temporal. God's realm is eternal and all-encompassing. Give, therefore, to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's. The two are inextricably linked. Make a plan and vote. Thanks be to God.